Hello, it's the 11th of February 2025 and my name is Tash Kahn. I'm an artist based in London, England, and I have a little cabin studio deep in the woods about 40 minutes away from my house, which is absolutely blissful. And I go there and I sit and paint and collage and walk and listen to the birds, and I really like it. I grew up in London. My mother was an artist, so I kind of automatically became that too. She was a painter, mostly of landscape, but occasionally animals and other things. She really taught me lots, and I used to go on little trips with her to paint and learn about mark making and look at her sketchbook. She had hundreds of sketchbooks, and she took photographs which she also stuck in sketchbooks, and it was really nice to just sit with her in her studio. I really enjoyed that. So I started my art practice as a painter, and it's still... If you peel me back, there's still a painter inside me, although now I branch out into other things. But I did start as a painter, mostly taking on inspiration from my surroundings, which were very urban and London, concrete, straight lines. I never wanted my paintings to be pretty, so I always just painted straight lines because I thought that curves and circles could be seen as pretty, which is a funny way of looking at it. But anyway, I started out, got my first studio, painted lots of street scenes and windows and abstract things, and then had my son. And after I had my son, it kind of changed everything, and I wasn't able to get to my studio as often as I'd like. So I looked at photos in magazines and newspapers and really liked looking, and I was really inspired by pictures of rock stars who just kind of, when they're like music video pictures, they're just taken, and their stances are so kind of, they're really weighty, and I really liked the composition, so I started painting pictures of rock stars for a while. And that gave me a sense of how the figure worked. And when I got back and my son was at childcare, I put figures in landscapes, still quite like brutalist, architectural, urban landscapes, but figures nonetheless. And that's when I found tape and sticking tape on my paintings to get straight lines, and then the tape became the whole story. And I drew and painted with tape, and then came off the canvas and went straight onto the wall, and then started making 3D things. And now I take Polaroids. I take a lot of Polaroids because I love their instantness. Probably because it's kind of like the instantness of tape as well. You get an instant straight coloured line and an instant photograph. I like that instantness. That's not a word, but anyway. And I make little sculptures. In lockdown, I did a whole series of still lives using objects from my home, and I quite enjoyed that as well. And now I'm working on lots of different things. What are my biggest influences? I suppose my biggest influences in the art world: Rachel White-Reed, Rauschenberg, Philida Barlow, Franz West. But there are so many. It depends if I like Polaroids, I want to look at Wender's Polaroids, and if I like sculptures, I want to look at Franz West and other people. Barlow is amazing, but also recent conversations with my peers. Life is an incredible influence on my work. It kind of never used to be, but in recent years, with big life, with big events in my life, like deaths and things, it's become more of an influence. So yes, I would say life, definitely. What am I focusing on right now? I'm doing a series of collages of my local swimming pool, which is a Lido outside, and I go there pretty much on a daily basis when I can. And it's a sea of blue and I love it. I only really learnt to swim properly last year, because when I started I was just doing breaststroke and it was really hurting my back. So I learnt proper swimming last year and I love it. I go all the time. And I started going 10 years to the day that my mother died. So I took a photo of that. And then for about the first year, I took a photo every time I went to the pool. And then I thought, I've got to do something with these pool photos. So I blew them up and printed them out and have been making collages out of them. I got asked to be in an art show in the to raise funds for the pool last year. And I thought, I'm going to do some collages. And I love collage because it's just like being a kid again. You sit on the floor, as I generally do, or at the kitchen table and just cut out things and stick and move things around. And you create this picture that could be one of so many different things. I mean, this collage could never end. I could keep going on with the collages, but at some point you have to say, no, this works. So I'm going to stop. But I always find that really difficult when I'm doing a painting or a sculpture or a collage, because there are so many different things it could be. It could be so many different pictures, and you could just keep going for the rest of your life on the same surface, which I always find quite fascinating. I always have lots of ongoing projects that I'm focusing on. And this kind of came about when I had my son, because I couldn't get into my studio. So I set myself projects of taking photos on the way to school, and there'd be a pile of rubbish by the side of the road and I would see it as art. So I set myself a little project and would just take photos, and then I'd have loads of these photos. Put them on Instagram under various hashtags. And at the moment I'm doing one. I was just in my kitchen, I suppose about 6 months ago, wiping up my mess on the surface that I'd created. And I turned over the scourer and it had what looked like a landscape on it with all the mess, with all the bits of yogurt and the bits of green spirulina and all this stuff. It looked like the perfect landscape in the tiny surface area of this scourer. So I started doing that, and that's a kind of ongoing project. When I create mess, I wipe it up and take a photo of it. But all these things only last for that second, and if the photo didn't exist, then the art, quote unquote, wouldn't exist either. And I like that. It kind of is there for the second. It's a moment, it's a memory, and maybe no one else has to see it but me. But anyway, I digress. What's the biggest challenge of being an artist? I would say for me, it's how much to let the viewer in. I have always struggled with this because I've always... I don't want anyone to know my business. When I first started painting, I got really into those big building site, those hoardings around building sites that you see in London, and there might be a bright colour, and this flat pane of colour is like this big barrier in the work. I started taking photos of these and then started painting them, and it was ostensibly a landscape with this big sweep of straight colour in front of it. And I had a crit with this artist who said, "You're not letting people in, Tash, you need to let the viewer in." It's like you're creating a barrier. And at the time I was like, well, I just want to, and don't tell me what to do. But now I kind of see that, yes, he was right. I wasn't really letting people in. And I was also titling my works by looking at my iPod, and coming up with song titles that didn't relate to the painting at all. So people would come in thinking it was one thing and actually it was something else. And now I do let people in. Over the years, things have happened and you do want to show stuff. I always kind of said that showing a painting to the world is like standing in a crowded hall naked and saying, what do you think? Because it's really personal. For me it is, it's really personal. But now I find it easier to let people in and make work that is more about me. A couple of years ago, my stepdad died, and it was an awful time, a very sad time. And about 6 months after he died, I think it was about that. 6 months after he died, I was asked to be in a sculpture show in the next village to where he died. And I thought, no, I'm not doing it. There's no way I'm doing it. I'm never going back. It's too painful. And then I thought, this could actually be a really good thing to do, to kind of get over the demons. And so I went back down and did it, and did this installation in this summer house, and took all these Polaroids of all these places that I went with him around the local area. And it was a very hard day. I cannot say I enjoyed it at all, but I kind of punctuated it with a beer at lunchtime and a swim in the sea, because I kind of wanted to cleanse. And I think that started my love of cold water swimming. But anyway, when I did that show, talking to people about it, during the private view and during the weekend it was open, was really cathartic for me, and it was really cleansing, and I'm really glad I did it. So yes, letting people in has been my biggest challenge, and I'm getting better at it as I get older. What else? Sorry. What advice would I give my younger self? Probably always follow your heart. Never think about how the viewer will react. I always thought, I can't paint that. People will hate it. And then I read this quote. Years ago by the musician Neil Young, who said, if you try and stay in favour of the public, you're a loser, you'll never get there, or something along those lines. And it really stuck with me, because I thought, I've got to do what's in my heart. I can't let so-and-so next door have a bearing on that, because this is my life and my passion that this is coming from. So I really need to do what's in my heart, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But ultimately, if my heart is in it, then that's all there is, right? So I would say, don't be scared to be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to do what you want to do. Most unconventional mediums or techniques, probably gaffer tape or my scaras. I have rolls of gaffer tape that are about 50 centimetres wide, and you could kill someone with these rolls of gaffer tape. I really like using them, they're great. Scaras as well, kitchen things. I also have a tendency I like making site-specific work. And if I'm asked to do a big installation or a big sculpture, I will invariably walk around the local area and accumulate rubbish, rubbish, quote unquote, that someone else sees as rubbish and I see as art, and I will make a piece out of it, and then at the end of the show I will discard the pieces I don't want, keep the pieces I do want that I can recycle into something else. And I like that whole ephemeral aspect. I always get really annoyed with paintings because you create so much stuff, and as much as I can sell them, sometimes I don't sell them, and sometimes they just take up space, and it's really difficult. So making ephemeral art is so much easier for me. Or collages that can lie flat and don't take up space. Do I listen to music? Yes, I used to listen to music, but nowadays I kind of see how I feel. I've been listening to lots of audiobooks while I collage and really enjoy that. Sometimes I want to dance, so I'll put music on, and that's good as well. What's the best reaction someone had to my artwork? I have a few things to answer this question. I had a crit once in an old studio with two other artists, and I had spent the whole few days before the crit creating this wall piece with photocopies, black and white photocopies of buildings and gaffer tape, and I had made this, what I thought, a great piece of work by sticking and ripping up bits of paper and sticking them on the wall, straight onto the wall, and creating this kind of installation piece that I thought was amazing. And on the other side of the wall, I just stuck the excess tape. So I had been ripping tape, sticking it onto the opposite wall, and these two artists came in and they went straight to the opposite wall and they said, "This is amazing. We love this." And I said, "But that's not the art. The art is over here. Look at this. This is the art." And they said, "No, but this is so spontaneous and so exciting, and we can see this, that, and the other." And I was really, at the time, I was really a bit pissed off. But then I thought about it, and I thought, there's something really intriguing about all the bits of tape stuck to the wall, because there is no thought involved at all. It's just randomly stuck where there's a little bit of space. And it was almost like in the mind of a child, like without thought. When you take thought out of it, it seems really pure. And that piece of work, now I see it as a piece of work, started off a whole different journey with me in my practice, because now I'm trying to do things from an intuitive space, and not think too much, because I think thinking can destroy a lot of work, for me at least, because I think of the problems before I even encounter them physically, and then I don't do something. But yeah, that was a good reaction. Another reaction is when I was in a group show in New York, and me and the other two artists decided to condense the whole show into a single Polaroid that we spotlit, and that had quite a good reaction as well. It was people saw it as a bit of the Emperor's New Clothes, but when we talked about it, it all made sense. But the gallerist at the time was like, "Oh, I'm not sure you can do that," but we felt we needed to do that because that was what we wanted to do. That made sense for all our practices at once. Instead of just doing a normal show with 3 people together. What do I hope people take away from my artwork? I think a sense of emotion. I want to make them feel something, either happy, sad, angry, whatever. I don't want them to just walk past it and go, meh, don't like it, or don't feel anything. I would like them to feel something. I once saw some Philida Barlow drawings at a gallery in London, and they really brought me to tears. They were so beautiful, and maybe one day in my dreams, my work will bring tears to the eyes of somebody else, or tears of joy. I don't know. That would be great. But anyway, thank you very much. I have really enjoyed doing this, and you can find me on Instagram at This Lady Paints. Thank you.